Hey, really the only thing that gon' be normal is distribution. Normal folks gon' infuse some. Optimize your lineups and you feed the rest, you mute them. Turning it up, these numbers are loud. Peeping this game from a nimbus is wild. Making it rain while I embrace all this risk, I'm insane. Talking about that best bill, I'm the best rest till into the next world. Guess I got next still. Best bill, I'm the best rest till into the next world.
And welcome into week 17 of the Best Bell Fantasy Football Podcast and live stream. I'm Bradley Stalder. You can follow me on Twitter at FFStalder. But joining me today, we have a special guest for week 17 for your championship matchups, Jacob Fabian from Losing Sucks, writer and analyst. And also, he's big into best ball as well. We go back and forth all the time on Twitter. Jake, it is great having you on. Thanks so much for joining me this evening.
It's a pleasure to be here, Brad. It's honestly my first podcast, so hopefully the crowd can go easy on me in the chat tonight.
Oh, I'm sure they will not be merciful. It's going to be a lot of fun tonight getting into it with Jake. We've got a few players that Jake wants to talk about, but also we'll answer your start-sit questions as well. We'll intermingle those into our discussion tonight. And we already have a couple jumping into the chat. Serendipity Trick Shot. Yo, what's up? Regular on the pod. Thanks for tuning in. And Jose Pena. Let's get some championships. Appreciate you jumping in, Jose. What's up, Serendipity Trick Shots? Hopefully you're doing well. And that's what we're here to help y'all get into your championship W's, right? Be like the Jameis Winston. Pull out the W and just, bite down. Jake's like, what is happening here? Welcome, Jake. Yeah, so awesome. If y'all have your questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We also, as I mentioned, Jake prepared a couple players that we want to get into, and there are some really tough start-sit decisions in the pre-show meeting. Jake and I were discussing a few that y'all have thrown into in the comments between like Trevor Lawrence and Mike White, but another quarterback that Jake wants to bring up for today is quarterback Brock Purdy. And Purdy has played, admirably, Jake. I think that's the way we can view him. He's been a back-end quarterback 1, high-end quarterback 2 for pretty much every game he's played. But how are you viewing him going into this Week 17 matchup against the Raiders who, just benched Derek Carr?
Yeah, it's an interesting spot against the Raiders, right? Because their defense has been a good matchup for the quarterback position. But the rap on Purdy is essentially that he's not going to go out and win you the game, right? He's the product of the pieces in that 49ers offense. He's the product of that Shanahan system. I'm essentially viewing him as if you need 16 points from your quarterback this week, Purdy's your guy. He's a lock for 202. And, he's done that every game as a starter. He's been between 15.3 and 21.7 every week as a starter. So if you're projected to win your matchup, maybe you had Dalton Schultz going into Thursday night, then you just, you wrap yourself up in the bubble wrap and you put in Purdy. Maybe you're hurting for Jalen Hurts or missing you've been trying to stream through Lamar Jackson's absence. Then Purdy's a guy that I'm rocking with in a lot of my lineups this week.
Yeah, you mentioned he's scored at least 2 touchdowns in every single game so far this year. Only one game where he hadn't gotten to 200 passing yards, but it was, of course, that game where he got 22 fantasy points. Okay, so he's the consensus quarterback 15 right now on Fantasy Pros. He is ahead of the likes of Deshaun Watson, ahead of Russell Wilson, ahead of Teddy Bridgewater. Are there any guys in that realm that you'd say, I am firing him up over Brock Purdy this week? Or is Purdy, the play compared to some of those players?
For me, he is the play. I might consider maybe Teddy Bridgewater is in play. Sort of under the same logic of he's not going to win you your week, but maybe he can produce with the pieces around him. Russell Wilson for me is intriguing this week. quarterback 18 by ECR, and he played decently well against the Chiefs the last time they faced off, I think. What was his line in that game? He was
Russ crushed it last time against the Chiefs. I think he was quarterback 3 on the week. He threw for 3 touchdowns. He had a pick, but 247 yards is not something to scoff at given what the Broncos had done so far this year. Russ hasn't finished as a top 10 quarterback, aside from that game and then the week 4 game against Vegas. So if Brock Purdy's getting the Vegas Raiders, I still give the lean to Brock Purdy. I feel like the weapons are more secure there. I feel like the system is stronger there. Brock Purdy has less paths to failure, or fewer paths to failure than Russell Wilson. And so I agree with you. I think that Brock Purdy over those players, but maybe we'll get a little spicier, like Brock Purdy or Smith, Rodgers, or Tom Brady.
So for me, I keep seeing Aaron Rodgers pop up with these good matchups. Last week against Miami, everyone thought, they're going to have to play catch up. Rodgers is in a good spot here. And I think he was an ECR QB1 last week as well, and put up a disappointing stat line for that ranking. And again, he's ECR QB11, and I don't get it. He's at 14.8 points per game on the season, and I don't know if you know this. You probably do because you know the numbers better than anybody. But Aaron Rodgers has not topped 20 fantasy points in a single game this year. So I feel like the floor is even lower than Purdy's. We're in 2022 and Aaron Rodgers is not a safe option at quarterback, and he doesn't really have a ceiling either. So
you mentioned it. He hasn't gotten to 20 fantasy points. He's finished as a top 10 quarterback just one time this year, and that was as the quarterback 10 against Dallas. And he only had 14 completions in that game, which is still wild to me. But as a Packers fan, it's been really, really hurtful to see Rodgers not be his normal self. Only 11 interceptions on the year, but Minnesota gives up the most passing yards to opposing receiving yards to opposing wide receivers. They're an absolute sieve when it comes to that. Christian Watson we're still waiting for whether Watson plays or not. And I think that matters when we talk about the upside for Aaron Rodgers. Like if Rodgers can play with Christian Watson, then I think you have a reason to think, there's access to upside. But if you're rolling out Allen Lazard and Randall Cobb and a few other just, so-so wide receivers, like Romeo Doubs is a replacement level wide receiver. Let's just call him what he is. I'm not excited about starting Aaron Rodgers. You mentioned he's quarterback 11 ECR. I've moved him down to 13. I still feel like that's too high.
Yeah, it's tough. It's just really difficult to have any confidence the way he's produced this season for fantasy.
All right, we're going to get into some of the questions here, Jake. First question from Serendipity Trick Shots. I know you said DJ Moore earlier, which is true. I do a couple live streams throughout the week, and he's confirming that DJ Moore is the play over Zay Jones. What do you think, Jake? I went DJ Moore, but talk me. Is there a line of Zay Jones could be the play in this week?
I think you'll struggle to find someone who's a bigger Zay Jones guy on Twitter than myself. I've been big pushing in the Losing Sucks group chats about Zay Jones and his expected fantasy points all year, and it finally came due in the last couple of weeks. And he paid off on those expected points, turning them into real fantasy points. But honestly, I think DJ Moore is the higher floor and higher ceiling play this week. With Zay Jones, there's a lot more target competition. There's the Texans being so easy to run on that teams don't have to pass on them. So his volume is in doubt. And I also saw from Josh Larkey at J Larkey Tweets a stat
friend of the podcast. Jay Larky.
Yes,
Josh
friend
Larky.
friend of the podcast, Jay Larky tweets. He put out a stat about DJ Moore seeing increased usage in the slot over recent weeks, which is correlated with getting those easy looks, the higher efficiency targets. So I really like DJ Moore as a target this week.
I agree with you. Yeah, I mean, I'm still going with DJ Moore. My opinion hasn't changed since earlier in the week. Moore's finished as wide receiver 13-3 the last 4. Inexplicably goose egging against Seattle, that week 14 game. But aside from that, he's also been able to access a ceiling in a way that a few other wide receivers can. He was wide receiver 8 and 5 earlier in the season. And against Tampa Bay, he gets Tampa Bay again. He went 7 for 69 and a touchdown last time. So I think there's just more trust in DJ Moore. And you mentioned the target competition. Like Evan Ingram has really come on over the last few weeks. I think a top 12 tight end each of the last 4. So that's why you have to be a little bit more concerned about Zay Jones, I think, along with the Marvin Jones and the Christian Kirks of the world getting in on the Jaguars passing game. So good. Jake and I both agree, Serendipity Trick Shots, you should roll with DJ Moore this week. And what do we think of Eckler? He was cleared. He's going to play this week. He was questionable, but healthy. I mean, Eckler's top 3, top 4 running back this week.
Yeah, I can't find a way to sit Eckler. I mean, you got to have Barkley, CMC, and I honestly, I don't even know if I'd put anyone else in that conversation. It's just got to be Eckler.
Yeah, I agree. It's gonna be Eckler. We're firing him up. All right, Herbert or Lawrence, full PPR. Josh Davis from YouTube. Thanks, appreciate it. And Josh, if you're new to the live stream and new to the podcast, make sure you hit that red subscribe button. It's way down there. My screen can't quite reach. I'm being a little ridiculous here.
I think it's on my side, so I'll...
Fair enough. Yeah, if you're new and you like the content, you find it helpful, make sure you hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel. And you know what? The channel's really grown and the community's really grown over the last few months. We've gone from about 50, 60 subscribers to almost 650 now. So it's grown a lot. Really appreciate y'all jumping in and being part of the community. So Herbert or Lawrence this week. We were chatting about Herbert in the pre-show meeting, Jake. Not quite Trevor Lawrence, but it's been hard to trust Herbert the last couple of weeks.
For sure, it has. And part of that, I think, earlier in the season, we could explain Herbert's underperformance as, he's missing Keenan Allen. He's missing Mike Williams. But I'm beginning to question whether it's really just the design of the offense that's limiting him to these sort of check downy dink and dunk type, targets. His average depth of target is, I think, in the bottom third of the league, if I'm remembering that correctly. And so he's really seen a bit of a slump. But as compared to Lawrence, the ceiling against the Texans is pretty limited. But I don't know. That's a tough one for me.
Yeah, I think you're gonna have to roll with Herbert this week. Is my lean. His consensus is quarterback 5. I have moved him down a little bit, but I've moved Lawrence down even further. My concerns with Lawrence, you mentioned the limited ceiling from the passing. Houston gives up the second fewest fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks, and it's not because they're any good. It's because teams run really efficiently, and when they get close to the goal line, they just hand the ball off. So if there's going to be a boom game, my bet is it's going to be on Travis Etienne and Evan Ingram. Like those are going to be the two players who have your bigger games for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Lawrence right now, he continues to fall in my rankings. He's my quarterback 12, and I wrote him up this week in my fantasy data article as a player I'm significantly lower versus consensus. His consensus is quarterback 7. And I just see so many paths for failure for Trevor Lawrence. Like he's been a top 5 quarterback 3 of the last 4 weeks, but now we come up to Houston where this game really doesn't matter. And at least for the Jaguars, it doesn't matter. And we've seen Peterson inexplicably bench his players, without warning. So this is one of those games where I am concerned about Lawrence, and I'm trying to find reasons to just dock him down more and more without like talking poorly about him because he's played well.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing too is, I don't want to say that the Rams are a sneaky good offense or anything, but they do still have Sean McVay.
Wait, are you going to speak well about Baker Mayfield, Jake? Are you going to do that?
I'm not going to go that far, but I will say they just put up 51 points on a really good defense in the Broncos. So there might be some sneaky shootout potential in that Chargers-Rams game, even with Baker Mayfield at quarterback.
Well, the Rams-Chargers game, if I find it here, the over-under is only 42, which is interesting to me. The Chargers are favored by 6.5, so there's not a lot of optimism about this this Rams-Chargers game. Man, Jake, to take a complete aside, I have so much best ball equity tied up in this week 17 game that's not playing in any of the finals because the Staffords of the world failed. The Mike Williams of the world were injured. The Keenan Allens of the world were injured. Allen Robinson, Cooper Kupp, just everything went awry. And I had so much in this game. And now it's not going to come to fruition. And we're dealing with one of the lower over-unders of the week. So much for predicting week 17, right?
Yeah, it's difficult. I want to say that I feel like most of them came more true than not, and trust the process and all that stuff. But the most disappointing one for my best ball exposures is absolutely the Darrell Henderson getting cut. That it looked so sharp for the first month of the season to be drafting tons of Darrell Henderson, and then just all of a sudden gone.
This is a guy who drafted about 25% Darrell Henderson and was looking forward to Cam Akers is trash. What if Cam Akers can't come back from his Achilles? Like, there were paths to failure for Cam Akers that we saw come to light at the beginning of the year. And it looked really sharp, but yeah, the Darrell Henderson getting cut. Yikes. I agree with you there. Woof. Okay, Raquel Santiago from YouTube, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you. Being that Gibson is out, should I start Robinson over Mixon? Matthew Berry, for full disclosure, Matthew Berry came out and tweeted that Brian Robinson is a borderline top 10 running back for this week, even in PPR. I feel like that's a little spicy, but I don't hate it.
Yeah, I can't quite get there personally. I feel like this Bengals and Bills game is really going to pop off. The over-under is set at 49.5 last I checked, which isn't even the highest on the slate. Detroit and Chicago is. But that feels a little low to me, 49.5. So I think there's going to be plenty of points to be scored in this game. Not sure that's the case in the Commanders game against Cleveland there. So they're both sort of meh efficiency guys who are projected for fairly workhorse roles. So give me the guy that's going to be on the higher scoring offense there.
I see that narrative playing out pretty strongly. Mixon has been, pretty inconsistent with his usage, though. You've seen Samaje Perine sprinkle in. I see, the argument for him being tied to that higher game total. My pushback, though, is that the Browns' defense against the run is just so bad. It's, I think, the worst or third worst. Let me pull up the DVOA. But the rush DVOA for Cleveland, they are the third most favorable rush DVOA matchup on the season. And then they give up the third most fantasy points in half PPR to opposing running backs. And Brian Robinson has gotten 20 touches in 3 of the last 4 games. And that's with Gibson in. I don't know we do know it's going to be Jonathan Williams, but I don't know how much really Jonathan Williams is going to eat into Brian Robinson. I can't get to top 10 or even top 12 for Robinson. but Mixon right now is the consensus running back 10. So I still am going with Mixon, but if Robinson falls in the end zone, maybe an extra time, or Mixon doesn't, I could see the overlay. I don't know. I can see a lot of people being really high on Robinson. I just can't start him over the likes of like a Jerick McKinnon. I really do like Jerick McKinnon this week, or like a Kenneth Walker or an Alvin Kamara, even Aaron Jones, Cam Akers. Those are players that I still am a little bit higher than Robinson on right now. Okay, cool. Let's see. Ooh, okay. This will tie into a player that Jake wants to talk about during the live stream. We talked about the other day, but I'm starting Dalvin Cook. This is QQ from YouTube, a faithful subscriber. Appreciate you jumping in, QQ. Starting Dalvin Cook and Algier is the running back 1 and 2. And Algier has been crushing it as of late. But for the flex, QQ is not so sure, putting in either Pacheco, Swift, Dotson, Lazard, or Chark. And maybe this will tie into two of the players that that you want to talk about here, Jake. Tyler Algier is the first one. Going into week 16, he was the number 1 rushing graded running back on PFF over the last 3 weeks. Algier crushed in week 16, ran for over 100 yards. And now he gets, where is he? Now he gets Arizona, which is an extremely favorable matchup. So how high can we get on Tyler Algier this week, Jake?
Well, that's exactly what I want to put to the test right now. Because, Tyler Algier over the last 3 weeks is averaging, let me pull it up here. He's averaging, where did it go? Oh dear, I lost my sheet. Is averaging 17.9 half PPR points per game over the last, it looks like his last 2 games. And so, like you said, he's been the top graded rusher per PFF, and he's got a great matchup. So I'm wondering this week, how do you feel Tyler Algier versus Brian Robinson?
Ooh, okay. I do have Robinson 1 spot ahead of Algier at this moment.
Okay.
But here's a spicy take. Are you ready for it?
Sure.
Tyler Algier over Josh Jacobs this week.
Okay, so that I was thinking maybe we were going to progressively work our way up to that take. But yeah, that was the conclusion there was, do we start Tyler Algier or Josh Jacobs? Because I'm terrified for Jacobs this week, and
thank you.
Algier is, he's been earning the role, playing ahead of Cordell Patterson, and Arthur Smith can scheme up a run like nobody's business. He's best run game coordinator in the NFL. So, and I mean that in all seriousness. I know he gets clowned on a lot for wanting to establish it, being 5-10 and all, but yeah, he's. I think Algier might be the play over Jacobs this week.
Yeah, I put out that Jacobs has been the running back 20 and running back 39 each of the last 2 weeks, and now the Raiders are moving to Jarrett Stidham. Ugh. Like, how can you have any optimism about Jacobs getting into the end zone? Because in games where he hasn't scored a touchdown, Jacobs has averaged as a running back 26 finish. And 3 of those games, in the 8 games he didn't score a touchdown, outside of the top 30 of running back, it's just extremely scary floor for Josh Jacobs if he doesn't score. And the 49ers haven't given up a rushing touchdown to opposing running backs on the season. Like, wild stuff. They give up the fewest fantasy points to opposing running backs. They give up the fewest rushing yards at 59 rushing yards to opposing running back groups on the season. Like, you're trying to find reasons to bench Josh Jacobs, and I think Tyler Algier is a pretty strong one.
Yep, for sure.
Oh, that felt spicy, but that's why we're here, Jake. That's why we're here. We're doing it for the people. The other person that QQ brought up in this discussion was DeAndre Swift. So, I have Algier ranked ahead of Swift this week. Right now, Swift is the running back 23 for me. He is the running back 23 in consensus. I want to be optimistic about Swift. Like I in my heart of hearts, I want to be optimistic. But I think the ceiling is higher for Swift, but I think there's a lower probability that he gets more fantasy points than Tyler Algier in this week.
Yeah, so the reason I wanted to talk about Swift is I think consensus has the Detroit backfield backwards. I think that Jamal Williams practiced in full. I think that we see the return of his best James Conner impression, where he just totes in a whole bunch of 1 to 5 yard carries at the goal line. There's no question in my mind that Detroit's going to be able to move the ball against Chicago. It's just a question of who gets all of those goal line touches. And Jamal Williams is 6th in the NFL in red zone carries as a percentage of his team's red zone carries. He's 2nd in inside the 10-yard line percentage, and he's 4th inside the 5. So he's still getting those goal line touches. We did see some encouraging usage from Swift, setting a near season high 56% of snaps last week. And he has been outscoring Williams 44 to 20 over the last 4 weeks. And he has been out snapping him 128 to 86 over the last 4 weeks. So I get why the consensus is the way it is right now. Like you said, I want to see the ceiling from Swift. I, like many others, sunk a bunch of 2nd-round picks into DeAndre Swift this year. And it's very easy, assuming the talent is what we all thought it was all along, that the ceiling is there. But I think that Jamal Williams is going to outscore DeAndre Swift this week.
Ooh, man. Oh, I wish I had your optimism, Jake. I am more with the consensus on this one. My concerns are less to do with the injury now that he has practiced in full, because we did get that report. He did have the season low in carries and in rushing yards and in snaps due to that injury, or at least that's what we're attributing it to. But in the previous 3 weeks, 29, 38, and 32% of the snaps, that's, I think, why I'm a little more discouraged for Jamal Williams, that Swift was, you mentioned it, out snapping him already. And, I'm not chalking up the second season high snap rate to that injury. I think that's more fluky. That's not going to stick as strong. But you're going to need a touchdown from Jamal Williams for it to hit. I just think there are more paths to Swift scoring fantasy points. Jamal Williams, you need those the battering ram at the goal line, right? And there's been 3 straight games where Williams hasn't gotten in the end zone, and he's finished during that span 43rd, 56th, and 57th in full PPR. So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong there, but last time that he played Chicago, 16 carries, 1 touchdown, 59 rushing yards, or 59 total yards, actually 59 rushing yards because he didn't have any receptions in that game. 6 red zone carries just in that game. Woof. So we'll see how it goes, but there is at least a line of thinking to, if the Lions and the Bears score lots of points in this game, Jamal Williams could be a part of that. Right. And if they're scoring position a lot, which the Bears are the worst defense in the NFL, let's not put it 2 ways. There's definitely goal line work to be had. So maybe I'm talking myself into a little bit more Jamal Williams here. There, Jake.
Yeah, I will add also, I don't know if you saw this, but Justin Jackson was added to the injury report today. So a late add to the injury report is usually not a good sign, but something to monitor is this apparently a hip injury that Justin Jackson has picked up that could help alleviate some of the concerns with Jamal Williams' volume going into this week.
All right, Justin Jackson on the injured report. You heard it here because I didn't hear about it, but we're taking Jake's word. Check it out. Listen up, because I think that is gonna matter, because Justin Jackson was getting somewhere between 10 and 20% of the snaps, over the last couple weeks. So, all right, we got a DST question from QQ. Lions or Steelers? Going Lions or Steelers defense, or the Colts defense? Man, oh man, this is why we're a hard hitting podcast here, Jake. We got the defense questions. You heard Matthew Berry came out today and said, like, get rid of defenses, from your fantasy lineup. So, but until that happens, I guess we're going to have to answer some of these questions.
Oh man. Yeah. Full disclosure, I'm a Steelers fan. Steelers have a lot of meaningless hope for the playoffs still left to go. But Tyler Huntley has been legitimately bad as the Ravens starter. And the Steelers defense is always a good bet for a couple of turnovers with, playmakers like Minkah Fitzpatrick and TJ Watt and Cam Hayward. Or at the very least, they'll get a couple of sacks. And then the Lions, I don't know if I'd bet on the Lions because, Fields holds the ball a long time. He has a high sack rate. They're liable to get a couple of sacks. It's just a question of whether they'll be able to actually slow him down enough to get you a decent score on the week. And then the Colts defense, they're a talented defense, but I don't know if I'm betting against the Giants and Brian Daboll this particular week. They're playing as underdogs, which you typically don't want to stream a defense that is an underdog in their particular matchup. By that same token, so are the Steelers. My lean is the Steelers based on talent and the opposing quarterback matchup. But what do you say, Brad?
Yeah, I have it in that exact order: the Steelers, and then the Lions, and then the Colts. The Steelers I have at 12 for this week. The Lions I have at 16, and then the Colts all the way down at 24. So that's where we're at. I think you've got the consensus here at the Steelers, with and without the Steeler bias. All right, we've got a harder hitting question. So are you ready? Are you ready, Jake? Because we've got Christian Watson, Mike Evans, or Tyler Higbeast.
Oh my. How far Mike Evans has fallen.
Evans has finished. This is something I was doing research for my articles this week, and Evans has finished no better than the wide receiver 32 each of the last 7 weeks.
Yikes.
And he still has an outside chance at 1,000 receiving yards on the season. He needs like 88 or something like that, 83 to get to that 1,000 receiving yard mark.
That's wild. Yeah.
I don't think Christian Watson practiced this week, did he? I think he got a limited practice in today, maybe.
Let's check.
But is it crazy to say Higbee over Mike Evans? I don't think it's crazy. I don't think it's crazy, and here's why. I don't think this is too much of a galaxy brain. You lose Cooper Kupp. You lose Allen Robinson. And you lose Ben Skoranek. Allen Robinson more of an outside wide receiver, but Kupp and Skoranek were more of that like intermediate, middle of the field type of route. And with those two players gone, who takes those types of snaps? It's not going to be Tutu Atwell, right? It's going to be Tyler Higbee, which is why he's getting all of these targets just suddenly out of nowhere. I think this is going to be once again a big Tyler Higbee game, and the Chargers tend to give up a lot of fantasy points to opposing tight ends and just a lot of fantasy points in general. Their defense isn't very good. So I don't think it's that crazy to think Tyler Higbee, given the role that he's assumed given the injuries on the Rams.
That is fair. I
I know, right?
I will say from an actual non-emotive analysis perspective, the last time Mike Evans faced the Panthers, it was with J.C. Horn healthy, and he went 9 for 96 on 15 targets. No touchdowns in that game, but that was in a 21-3 loss against the Panthers. Now J.C. Horn is out. He was their top cornerback. And so I think that there's a good chance that Evans has a bounce back game this week, especially with, narratives running for, locking up the NFC South. As bad as that division is, Tom Brady wants to go riding off into the sunset and not losing a playoff spot to Sam Darnold. So
yikes. Can you imagine the chaos? The chaos? Yeah, he's projected to go up against CJ Henderson in the research that I did. But the last time that he went up against Henderson, he was only targeted 4 times. Henderson was, and Evans only caught 2 of those 4 for 24 yards. So Henderson, although he's not a good cornerback, let's not give Henderson too much credit. He's had some big blow up games, but that he's allowed. But if Christian Watson is quote unquote full go, I mean, you got to start the highest ceiling wide receiver there. I think that's the lean. So we're monitoring this situation. He's officially questionable with that hip injury. He did get a limited practice in on Friday. So we're just keeping our ears close because the Packers need to win out to get into the playoffs. They need to beat Minnesota, and then they need to beat Detroit next week if they want to have a chance. So, yeah. Bungalow Joe, sorry that we're not giving you the the best answer here, but hopefully it's a little more nuanced. Hopefully it took some things away from it. Rob Kane, Zonovan Knight or Zach Moss? Ooh, man, right? I'll take the lead on this one. Then Jake, you can chime in, tell me if I'm an idiot or not. Right now, I have Zonovan Knight at 26 and Zach Moss I have at 30. The Zonovan Knight argument is that Seattle just gives up a poop ton of fantasy points to opposing running backs, and that Zonovan Knight is the preferred running back as opposed to Michael Carter. Carter does not profile as a lead back. Zonovan Knight has led the team in rush attempts. I assume that this game is going to be a lot closer than the Jets game was, or the Jaguars game, I'm sorry, in week 16. And I don't think 6 rush attempts is in the cards for Zonovan Knight. He was coming off of that ankle injury that had been bothering him. And Detroit in week 15 was just an absolutely tough matchup. So I think that this is a bounce back game for Zonovan Knight. He's projected to have the 22nd most points per Fantasy Pros, but his ECR is at 27. I just can't get behind Zach Moss. He's just not good. He's hashtag not good. And yes, I know we get the volume and maybe he falls in the end zone. But even with 36 carries over the last 2 games, he has 146 rushing yards. 146 on 36 carries. That's not great. And he doesn't catch many passes. It doesn't fall in the end zone either. This is a bad offense. So give me at least a little bit more juice in Zonovan Knight.
Yeah, I have to look this up real quick because I seem to have in my head that Zonovan Knight got soft benched midway through that game against the Jaguars.
I know Deion Jackson got soft benched, right? That was the rumor.
Right. Yeah. No, I saw that too. And then I saw someone say,
it's not true.
At YZR Fantasy said, oh, that's a parody account. Said that's the best troll account or whatever. So I'm not sure.
But it would make sense though, right? At least it made sense in that narrative, even if it wasn't true. The results were still there that Deion Jackson didn't carry the ball at all and only had 3 receptions for 9 yards. And his first reception went for -9 yards, which was disastrous. So,
yeah. And I just, check through the play-by-play to see when exactly Zonovan Knight got his carries. They were dispersed all throughout the game, so disregard what I was saying about him getting benched midway through the game. I do think he's a solid play, given the matchup. I just have concerns about the Jets' offense as a whole. I'm not a big believer in Mike White. I know they've had higher offensive production whenever he started. I know that Seattle's defense is not the best by any means, but yeah, I think I lean Moss. I think I lean Moss just because for whatever beef Jeff Saturday does or doesn't have with Deion Jackson, I think I'll just trust the volume, and because I'm not sure that Zonovan Knight's really proven that he's any good either. We just have a larger sample of Zach Moss being bad. I mean, Zonovan Knight on the season is averaging 3.9 yards per carry on 65 attempts. I'm unconvinced.
Okay. Jake is unconvinced. I'm leaning Zonovan Knight, but let's take a step back here and recognize that both of these players are not running back twos even. Like, these are desperation flex plays that you're hoping fall into the end zone. That's the perspective that I think we need to have about both of these players. And I think Knight has the better matchup, but I also think Jake is right that Moss is going to get a lot more carries, and there's more narrative to Moss getting, the volume that could lead to more points. So yeah, this is it's not an ideal situation. We've got another question about Zach Moss from Willie Watkins. Zach Moss, Jahan Dotson, Michael Pittman, or Brandon Cooks? Okay, so I think this is a litmus test question for us, Jake, because I think Zach Moss and Brandon Cooks are in lower tiers compared to Jahan Dotson and Michael Pittman. But I've been very big on Jahan Dotson as of late. Pittman right now is the consensus wide receiver 26 on Fantasy Pros and half PPR. Jahan Dotson, I think, is at 33. Last I checked. Yeah, he's at 33. But I like Jahan Dotson better this week. I have Jahan Dotson even higher than Terry McLaurin. Did I say that? But Dotson has finished as wide receiver 25 or better in 6 games of his 10 games, and 6 of the 9 where he played 50% or more of the snaps. So I think there's a safer floor for Jahan Dotson than what Michael Pittman has been putting up, especially with Nick Foles now in the fold at quarterback.
Yeah, I think so. My take on Dotson this week is that I have 2 concerns. One is the return of Carson Wentz, and that he has, as compared to Taylor Heineke, targeted the middle of the field more. We see a lot more usage for Curtis Samuel when Wentz has been the starter. So that's concern number 1. Concern number 2 is all of the reasons that we said Brian Robinson is a good start this week. The Browns' run defense is awful, and it's very likely, in my opinion, that they're just going to feed maybe 25 touches to Brian Robinson, and that's going to take away from the passing volume that's available for Jahan Dotson to work with. And then if we compare to Pittman playing against the Giants as underdogs, I think I'd rather have Pittman as the alpha dog in that offense, chasing the Giants, who have worse defensive backs than the Browns. The Browns are PFF is giving them a matchup rating for Jahan Dotson of 29.5 versus 63.5, the higher number being better for Pittman. So Pittman with the better matchup, the better pass-friendly game script, in my opinion, better talent, better role in the offense. I think I would go Pittman here.
Okay, you want to play a little game,
Sure.
a blind resume game?
Sure.
Okay,
I'm sure I'm about to get owned, but go ahead.
Okay, so player A, 11.7 PPR fantasy points per game, 57 receiving yards a game. 4 of his 14 games were as a top 25 wide receiver this year. He's wide receiver 16 in fantasy points per target, and his 2023 ADP, so the way too early ADP, is wide receiver 39. The other wide receiver, 11.4 fantasy points this season, 41 yards per game, 6 of 10 games as a top 25 wide receiver 4 in fantasy points per target, and his way too early ADP is wide receiver 43. Who do you think player A is?
Player A's got to be Pittman, I'm guessing.
It's not Pittman,
No,
but not. Good guess. This is a player who has an ECR higher than Jahan Dotson, for what it's worth.
Okay, let me pull up the ranks here, and I'll see if that gives me a better.
Spoiler alert: player B is Jahan Dotson, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And what was the ADP in way too early drafts for next year?
Wide receiver 39.
It's not Drake London, is it?
No, London's getting it like 26th, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, London is. I think I'm still drafting a lot of London next year.
Yeah, I don't know.
But if it comes down to Jahan Dotson or Gabriel Davis, I think we go with Jahan Dotson here. As crazy as it sounds, man, right? How the mighty have fallen. Do you remember during the prime summer when Gabriel Davis was being drafted as like in the middle of the third round, end of the third round of fantasy drafts? And
not by me.
Wild. It was wild days. I made some TikToks about it, and it got pretty wild. Nevertheless, okay, so. But we're starting Dotson and Pittman over Cooks and Moss, right? Just to be clear. Okay. So hopefully that helps, William. Tony C, we're going to go more rapid fire here and see if we can also hit on a couple other players I'm going to keep in mind. Okay, we've got 2 more that we want to hit on for Jake here. Swift, Zay Jones, or DJ Chark this week?
I think... This is PPR. Oh, Swift. Swift for me, yeah.
Okay, and is it Jones or Chark for the other one?
Oh, it's 2. Duh. Chark.
Yeah, I go Chark too.
I think we just double up on the Lions there.
I agree with you. All right, everyone, if you haven't hit that red subscribe button and you like the content, make sure you do that. Jake has been crushing it as a guest tonight. Make sure you're following him on Twitter at 16FabianJacob. And also throw your comments in the chat. We're going to go more rapid fire, just like we did this last one. Josh Davis, thanks, guys. Scraped in the playoffs, now fighting it out for the chip. Good luck. Yeah, good luck to everyone fighting it out in the championship round. Or if you're in the toilet bowl, there are some people who are in the comments like, if I lose this game, there's one guy who private messaged me and he's like, I'm in the toilet bowl, and if I lose, I have to do the hot chip challenge. And I'm like, oh man, dude. Oh man, it's fun times in fantasy land here. The Joker from YouTube pick 2 full PPR: Montgomery, Algier, Ramondre Stevenson, Rashad White, and Donta Foreman. So a bunch of running backs.
That's Ramondre and Algier for me.
I think you go Ramondre and Algier. If it was a half PPR, I could see an argument for Donta Foreman because he's been crushing it on the ground as of late. But full PPR, Foreman and the rest of the Panthers just don't get very much involved in the passing game. So I agree with you there. Okay, Hayden Hurst, Jordan Akins, Bellinger, Jelani Woods for the tight end position.
Hurst is questionable, isn't he?
Hurst is questionable. I don't know if he's going to play or not.
Yeah. The tough part there is that you're going to have to wait until Monday night for Hurst. And I don't know if I'd fall back to like a Drew Sample.
Or Wilcox, right?
Oh, I don't even know who Wilcox is.
Oh, yikes. That's a deep cut for you. Yeah, there are concerns about this was yesterday. Hayden Hurst did log a full practice on Thursday.
Okay, then I'm going Hurst.
Okay. Yeah, I think so too. Given that news, we're going to bump up Hayden Hurst in the rankings as well. Darren Waller or Tyler Conklin? Oh, how the mighty have fallen, right?
Yeah, that one's tough too.
Because Conklin gets the second most favorable tight end matchup in Seattle. Like, it's Seattle and it's Arizona that just give up fantasy points to tight ends and make them look like Travis Kelce. So is this where we trust the data or do we trust the player? Because you can trust Waller, but do you trust Jarrett Stidham throwing them the ball?
Right. So in a situation like this, I'm just going to trust Vegas and bet on the team with the higher implied total. And so that's going to be New York for me. So, just if we're going to play touchdown roulette, I'm going to bet on Tyler Conklin.
Let's go Conklin over Waller. It's this also ding, 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 an official rankings change in the Fantasy Pros contest application. There we go. I finished as the tight end, the third most accurate tight end ranker this past week. So let's roll. Broncos country, let's ride. Louise Link from YouTube, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you. A running back one, Cook. Running back two, ETN. Then Evans, Pittman, Kittle, flexing Stevenson. And then the question is the second flex. Do we go Hodgins, who's been red hot of late, Jamal Williams, or Tyler Higbee?
That's going to be Williams for me.
This is where I'm sticking with my priors. I'm going Isaiah Hodgins. A couple weeks ago, I declared on a different podcast that Hodgins was going to be a deep league or a deep cut league winner, and I haven't been wrong. So I think I'm just going to keep rolling with Hodgins until he proves me wrong. Which defense? The Eagles, Giants, or Chargers here?
I lean Eagles in that spot.
Yeah, the Eagles right now are my defense 7. The Giants are my defense. Wow, we are my defense 2 against Indy and Foles. And then the Chargers are defense 5 against Baker and the Rams. So I guess I'm going with the Giants. I guess I'll go with the Giants. Falcons or Giants DST then. I think I'm going with Giants as well.
Yeah, I'd also go Giants there.
Okay, Carlos from YouTube started McKinnon in PPR. Pacheco or Knight? I think this one's pretty easy, Jacob.
Yeah, Pacheco for me.
Yeah, Pacheco as well. Cole Kmet or Darren Waller?
Kmet.
Yeah, it's Kmet. You want pieces of the Chicago-Detroit game. Bam Knight or Zach Moss full PPR? I feel like we answered this one, didn't we?
Yeah, we did this one.
Although maybe it's a different user, but still, yeah, we came out split on this one, Ian. Sorry to disappoint you. Pittman or Watson full PPR? I think if Watson is full go, I think you go with Watson.
Yeah. If Watson's active, you play him.
And then Bam Knight or Algier. I think this is an easy one too.
Yeah, Algier.
Yeah, Algier. Josh Alexander from YouTube picked 2: Metcalf, Garrett Wilson, London, and Juju. I feel like this one is also an easy one.
It's harder for me because I'm not as high on Garrett Wilson as everyone else is, but I think it's still Garrett Wilson and DK Metcalf.
Yeah, it's Wilson and Metcalf for me as well. I agree with you there. Drake London, you're worried about accessing a ceiling. London has been a wide receiver 2 only a couple times this year, and Juju has been really inconsistent. And I'm pretty sure this is the blow-up game he had. Yeah, Denver, he went 9 for 74 and a touchdown last time that he played, but he's been hard to trust because he's finished as the wide receiver 58 or worse in 4 of the last 6 games. Yikes.
Yeah.
Okay. Jerick McKinnon, Jamal Williams, Swift, Walker, Algier, Knight. Wow, just a throwing stuff at the wall here. Tony is appreciate you asking though. This is full PPR, so it's going to be hard to keep Jerick McKinnon out of this lineup, right, Jake?
Yeah, I think so. He's basically got the pass catching role out of that backfield on lock. So I'd lean Walker and McKinnon, I think, is where I'm going.
Walker and McKinnon in full PPR. I think I do agree with you there. Walker and McKinnon. Algier is very close, though. Both of us are very bullish on Tyler Algier this week. Okay. We got 2 Tony C's in the chat. Shout out to you. Shout out to both Tony C's in the chat. That is hilarious. Yeah, hopefully both of you have subscribed to the channel. If you haven't, make sure that you hit that red subscribe button. I remind you, if you like the content and you find it helpful, make sure you subscribe to the channel so that I can keep bringing on great guests like Jake on live streams like this. Aaron Robarge, Davante Adams, Christian Watson, or Mike Williams. Are we going to bench Davante Adams this week?
I'm not. I can't bring myself to do it. But if we have to pick one, right, there are worse options you could bench him for than Mike Williams. If you're really that worried about Davante Adams, maybe you have a comfortable projected lead. I wouldn't hate benching him for Mike Williams. But if we get a Mike Williams dud game, as he sometimes does, and Adams, posts a fine 7 for 85 and nothing, he gets an okay stat line, then I would hate to leave him on the bench in that case.
Yeah,
so hold your nose and play Adams.
Hold your nose and play Adams. According to PFF, Davante Adams has a 100% advantage and a 93.8 advantage against his 2 top cornerbacks, his left and slot cornerback, where he's projected to play 25 combined snaps. Even against Travarius Ward, he has a 78.4 advantage, which is a good. The way PFF does their wide receiver cornerback matchups ranges from 0 to 100, and a 78.4 is still an advantage in favor of Davante Adams. But the big reason we're discounting him is because Jarrett Stidham has 4 games where he's thrown for double-digit pass attempts, and in half of those games, I'm just going to verify this, but it was something like Jarrett Stidham. Yeah, he has, in looking at the game log, yet 2 of those 4 games he's thrown below 40% completion percentage. Woof, right? Yeah. Right. And Davante Adams has played really badly as of late. Davante Adams finishing as the wide receiver 38, 57, and 79 each of the last 3 weeks. And that was with Derek Carr. So he was on my Stidham list for my full-time article that I put out this week. It feels bad, but would you be tilted if Davante Adams goes like 5 catches for 65 yards and catches a touchdown? and you leave him on your bench, or would you be more tilted when you start him and he catches 4 passes for 28 yards and doesn't catch a touchdown? Right.
So my approach is generally very start your studs, and so when
but Adams has not been studly as of late.
I know, but the talent is he's a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL, and so it's like it's very hard for me to feel bad about a player like that busting. So personally, I maybe it's just a risk tolerance thing where if you're okay with Adams having a decent game on your bench, then that's you rock with Mike Williams. But
okay, yeah, I'm rocking with Mike Williams. We'll see how that goes. Waller or Higbee? I'm going to Higbee.
Yeah, I think I would have said Waller before tonight, but you really sold me on all of the midfield weapons are out, and that's why Higbee's seen the boost in targets. So yeah, I'll go Higbee.
Yeah, Higbee had 11 targets in the Week 16 game against Denver. You also have to remember too, like Baker's still figuring out this offense, right? He signed with the Rams on Tuesday of Week 14. He plays Thursday, and then he targets Higbee 5 times against Green Bay, and then 11 times in Week 16 after Skoranek left that Week 15 game early due to injury. So, yeah, I mean, if we're already thinking about fading or sitting Adams, I think we're looking for reasons to sit Waller as well. Okay, QQ's asking, who do I put in the flex? Let me scroll all the way back. Did we not answer your question?
I think we might have gone off on an Algier tangent.
Oh, boy. Yeah, so Pacheco, Swift, Dotson, Lazard, or Chark.
Sorry about that, QQ. I would go. I think we're going to be split on this one probably, but I would go Pacheco unless Watson sits, and then I'd play Lazard.
I am listening very carefully to the injury reports on Christian Watson. I think Lazard is a play this week if Watson sits. As I mentioned earlier, the Minnesota Vikings give up the most receiving yards to wide receivers on the year. And I know this game is in Green Bay, so it's not like that dome shootout possibility, but it's still I think the second highest over under on the week. So I could see you wanting part of that offense, even if we're a little lower than consensus on Aaron Rodgers. So you said Pacheco and Lazard. I also like Chark. I like Chark in this matchup over even Dotson. We talk about upside plays, and I trust the talent of Chark more than Lazard. I also trust the recent production. Chark has he's played really well over the last 4 games. 3 of those 4 games, he's finished with 94 or more receiving yards. And the only game he didn't was when he got shadowed by Sauce Gardner. He was only targeted twice. So it wasn't he just didn't get the opportunity. So QQ, maybe I go with Pacheco and Chark, whereas I think Jake is going Pacheco and Lazard in this matchup.
Yeah.
All right. Hopefully that helps you. Wow. All right. That took a bit of scrolling. Appreciate you with your patience, QQ. Okay. We're going to take a pause, and we're going to give Jake an opportunity to talk about another player that he's big on. Maybe you're big on, maybe you're lower on him. I don't know. I want to hear more about Jerry Jeudy this week because Jeudy is coming off an ankle injury, but he's also played well as of late. But also Russ has sucked lately. But also Cortland Sutton's supposed to be back. But also Greg Dulcich is out for the season. But also maybe it's Albert Okwuegbunam season. Who knows? How are we going to distill what is going on with Jerry Jeudy? I feel like there are a lot of layers to this Jeudy this Jerry Jeudy wide receiver start sit? Like, how are we approaching him? This is a pretty complex issue. Let's peel away the onion, Jake.
For sure. So Jeudy is currently wide receiver 19 in ECR. And I'm playing him this week as a high-end wide receiver 2, low-end wide receiver 1. And my basis for doing so is that when he's been on the field, he's been an extremely productive wide receiver. In games that he's played over 70% of the snaps, he's averaging 16.9 PPR points per game. Which would be good for wide receiver 10 in points per game among wide receivers who have played at least 4 games. And he's also averaging 0.45 fantasy points per route, which would be wide receiver 13. So I really think that, not to mention that he blew up the last time they played the Chiefs for a cool 873 and 3 touchdowns. So I really like Jeudy, especially now that Dulcich is out. So even with Sutton coming back, that doesn't really add too much net target competition in my mind. And like I said before, I like to chase the trailing, passing friendly game scripts, and I don't think there's any danger that the Broncos will be leading at any point in this game. So, so I really like Jerry Jeudy this week.
Yeah, I do like Jerry Jeudy as well. He almost didn't get much of that production in the week 14 game because he took off his helmet and like bumped a ref or something like that and almost got ejected. But thankfully for fantasy managers who started him that week, he did go that 8 for 73 and 3 touchdowns on 9 targets. Jeudy has at least 8 targets each of the last 3 games. He's hit at least 11 fantasy points each of those games. And, he had a big play against the LA Rams that got him a significant amount of chunk yards. 117 receiving yards was a season high back in last week. So I could see that, but I think, okay, I'm not opposed to that, but is there I view it as a tier break here between like you're going Keenan Allen and DK Metcalf, Garrett Wilson, Chris Godwin, Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith, and then Jerry Jeudy. I think that's about the tier break that I would give. Like Jeudy over Hopkins, Jeudy over Kirk, Jeudy over Moore, Jeudy over Ayuk and Juju, right? Like I think that's the tier break for me for Jeudy for this week.
Yeah, I would throw Garrett Wilson into those names that I think are below Jeudy, but otherwise, yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at.
Okay, I like it. I like it, Picasso. All right, let's see. Josh Alexander, Deshaun, or Trevor Lawrence this week?
That's Lawrence for me.
Yeah, we're going T-Law. Deshaun's been terrible this year. Okay.
Yeah, I think this is just a lost year for him.
Flexing Juju or Algier in full PPR? Is this one of those upside versus floor arguments?
Yeah, I think so. Algier, the higher floor play, and Juju, the higher ceiling. Mm-hmm. My inclination in a full PPR is to just play Juju for the upside of a wide receiver in PPR, but
Algier got targets last week. He got 4 or 5 targets. That was pretty nice. And then, he's also had 35 rush attempts each of the last 2. 5 targets, 4 receptions for 43 yards. So you have to like Tyler Algier. I would go with Algier. I'm just Denver Broncos defense is still a little tough. And Chris Patrick's asking Jeudy or Cortland Sutton on FanDuel. That's what, half PPR? I think FanDuel's half PPR. We're going Jeudy, right?
Yeah. So I think part of what's going to factor in here is maybe the prices are different, but I don't know. I'm not huge in DFS, but I do have the app so I can maybe check it real quick if we want to.
Yeah, let me look at FanDuel. Jerry Judy's projected rostership is 4.4%. He's 7K. That's 28th, 28th in the rostership. Whereas Sutton, so he's expensive but not rostered a lot. Whereas Cortland Sutton on FanDuel, where is it? I don't even see him listed there. Yeah, I don't know if he was at the time, at least on the site I was looking. Maybe it has, oh, there it goes. It updated. 3.3% rostered, 32 in rostership, and 6,800. I'm definitely leaning Judy if it's only a 200 difference. And there's a 1.5% increase in rostership. Yeah, give me Jerry Judy for sure. Okay, Spencer Graves, Swift or Pittman at PPR. Right?
That's one I'm gonna have to check.
I think I'm gonna go Swift. I want the higher game total. You know, if we're going that route, and if the narrative is that Swift has earned more snaps, that's a possibility. We've seen upside from Swift that's higher than Pittman's. Like, just give me Swift, and if I die in the Swift hill, like, so be it.
Yeah, I think I'd lean Swift there too.
Okay, it's Johnny Mac from YouTube. Hold on. I want to get rid of that. Okay. Where did it go? Okay, there we go. If Watson can't go, do it play Curtis Samuel, DPJ, or Dubs? Well, I think you gave a hint away earlier in the live stream, right? There's some tendency of Carson Wentz. But if Christian Watson doesn't go, does Dubs bump up that much?
I don't think in a way that you could count on him, or at least that I would count on him in my lineups. I would be playing Curtis Samuel in that spot.
Okay. Curtis Samuel or Chuba Hubbard?
Curtis Samuel.
I think it's...
Is this PPR?
I don't know if it's PPR or not. It doesn't say.
I think I'd lean Samuel either way, unless it's like a standard league or something.
Perhaps. I do like how Samuel was targeted a lot by Wentz. So I think, you know what? You're talking me into a Curtis Samuel there. Okay, Giants or Ravens defense. I think we're going with the Giants defense based on what I had said earlier, but because I think I only have the Cowboys ranked higher.
Yeah, I know Nick Foles threw a ton of picks last week, and Kenny Pickett throws a lot of picks too. So personally, I'd go Ravens, but it's very close. Both
is close.
Plays.
Yeah, they're both top 4 plays for me, for sure. Let's see. He's not been playing like a top 5 wide receiver. Now he's a terrible quarterback. I think this is Devontae Adams.
Yeah, that's Devontae Adams.
Ghost from YouTube chiming in. C Crip. Hey guys, need 3 to start, 2 running backs and a flex. So let's start with the running backs. Lenny, Swift, Algier, or Akers. I think Algier and Akers, right?
3.
But this is full PPR.
2 running backs and a flex. So what are your thoughts on Lenny this week? Because personally, I would lean Lenny, and I know we've been big on Algier all stream, but I think Lenny and Akers is who I would play at the running back spots, and then Williams at the flex.
See, Lenny had a really cush matchup against Arizona, and they were like, this was a pretty competitive game. Last time he played Carolina, 8 for 19, 2 receptions for 7 yards, finishes the running back 48 in that game. And I know everything just went to poop in the Carolina-Tampa Bay game last time, but still, before this Week 16 game against Arizona, Fournette had finished no better than running back 18 in 7 straight weeks. and he had like running back 48, running back 34, running back 28 finishes during that span. He's just not a running back that I trust, given the role that Rachaad White has carved out for the Tampa Bay. Last week we saw the worst fantasy finishes for both DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams on the season, for both running backs. So I wonder if this is actually a fade of Leonard Fournette. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he crushes, but he's also supposedly dealing with a Liz Frank injury that hasn't been reported.
He tweeted that out himself and then deleted it within an hour. So
yeah,
who knows what's going on exactly there. I don't hate playing Algier and Akers at the running back spots, but I think Mike Williams should be the flex here.
Agreed. And I think Mike Williams over D-Hop.
Yeah. Honestly, if D-Hop is active, even I'm playing Mike Williams over him.
Ooh, there we go. What's y'all's kicker and defense rankings? I'll give you a top 5 for each of those real quick. And if there are any others you want to add, Jake, you can certainly do so. My top 5 defenses, we're the Cowboys, Giants, Chiefs, Ravens, and Chargers. And then for kickers, I had Dicker, Tucker, Butker, McPherson, and Bass. Any others you want to chime in, or if you're all set with that?
Kickers sounds good. Personally, I have the Chargers would be replaced with the Eagles for me.
Okay. Yeah, throw the Eagles in there as well. Spencer from YouTube, also Kmet or Njoku at tight end. They seem pretty even, but I think I'm trusting Fields more than Watson. I am as well. What do you think, Jake?
Yeah. Njoku's been like one of the few pass catchers that have been reliable with Watson. But yeah, I'd lean Kmet.
I'd lean Kmet, and that's what C-Crip says as well. If you like the content, you find this helpful, Jake has been extra generous, staying over an hour on the live stream, extraordinarily generous with us tonight. Make sure you hit that red subscribe button, but also make sure you're following Jake on Twitter at 16FabianJacob. We can motor on through, or Jake, if you're good for now, I can handle the rest. It's up to you. We're at your mercy here. So I know we've taken a lot of time from you. I'm cool beans either way.
I am more than happy to be here as long as you'll have me. Like I said, this is my first time doing a stream, being live with everyone here in the chat. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm glad to answer as many questions as people want to ask.
As I did give Jake a warning that y'all are a pretty great group, a pretty rowdy bunch. But this is also, I'm trying not to rival Matt Kelly, of Player Profiler and his 3-hour streams and podcasts. So let's see if we can get it down. Lockett or Najee in the flex spot?
That's Najee for me.
Yeah, I am significantly concerned about Lockett. He is supposed to be returning. He is supposed to return, but it's only, a week and a half removed from surgery? Like, what?
Yeah, I'm no doctor, but I feel like there's a significant risk of re-injury there, just trying to get him back for the playoff push or whatever. But yeah, I think Najee has been actually playing pretty well recently, so I would just trust Najee here.
Tony C, the purple Tony C from YouTube. Hurst, Waller, Fant, or Conklin? Yes, we get in Jake's final player for the night. So he can go home now. Now that we can talk about Noah Fant, this is the last player that Jake wanted to chat about tonight, and that is tight end for the Seattle Seahawks, Noah Fant. Talk to us. Is he the start among these tight ends? Where is it? Conklin, Hurst, Fant, or Waller?
Yeah, so for me, among those options, I was Conklin, Fant, Hurst, and Waller.
Yeah,
I think I'd play Hurst still.
Ooh,
but
spicy.
I do like Fant a lot this week. Will Dissly has been placed on IR, so hopefully the timeshare in that tight end room has been reduced as a result of that. But Colby Parkinson is still there. But I like him as a streamer. I liked him more before I heard that Lockett was expected to play. But I think the volume could be there for another tight end, top 12 tight end week. He's had, I think, 3 tight end 1 finishes on the season, and he's been the tight end 11 over the past 2 weeks. So I'm betting on the increased role and, the recent production to make him a viable streamer this week.
And let's not forget Noah Fant, former first-round pick out of Iowa, right? Athletic freak, drafted by Denver to be like the tight end, the next George Kittle type. That was his one of his significant comps, and it just nothing worked out in Denver. So a fresh start in Seattle. We've still seen some spiked weeks from him, despite sharing that role with Will Dissly, and you mentioned Parkinson. But Noah Fant is a player that we need to keep on that tight end streaming radar. I agree with you here, Jake. Let's keep her moving, as they say from Wisconsin. Keep her moving. McKinnon, Fournette, Foreman, or Dobbins, pick 2. From G Money 52404 on Twitch, not on YouTube, on Twitch. We got a Twitch watcher. Appreciate you, G Money. I'm leaning McKinnon definitely, but I think it comes down to who do you like more out of those, and if it's PPR, I would go Fournette.
Yeah, me as well. Tom Brady continues to be a check down machine, and the running backs are a beneficiary of that. So,
Kevin Scott, Deontay Johnson, or Jahan Dotson?
That's a tongue twister right there.
I had to speak it slowly here, Jake. Man, oh man. I have Jahan Dotson ahead of Deontay Johnson this week.
Yeah, it's a deceptively quote unquote good matchup. If you look at your fantasy app of choice, it's probably going to say that the Ravens are a top 10 or top 5 even matchup for wide receivers. But that's still just residual effects of the Dolphins absolutely dominating them in week 2. Since then, they've been much, much better against the pass. So I would go Dotson over Johnson.
All right. Let's see. Conklin with White starting, and then Waller next. Yeah, there we go. Amari Cooper, Christian Kirk, or DJ Chark in full PPR. You have to go. I think you have to go Amari Cooper, right? Over Christian Kirk. I mean, even in the bad weather game, this was a negative 18-degree wind chill in Cleveland this past week, 30-mile-an-hour winds. Amari Cooper still commanded 10 targets, caught 6 passes for 70 yards. I think I'm going to Amari Cooper over Christian Kirk.
Yeah, I can get behind it, especially if we're going to be making the argument that Jacksonville's kind of crowded in terms of the target competition. So yeah, I can get behind playing Cooper over Kirk.
Okay. Ghost is asking, who is the new coach for the Broncos and what is their style? Well, the new coach for the Broncos, the interim coach is Jerry Roseburg. And he's just got a couple weeks left. So I don't think that there's a lot of tendencies that we've been given about Roseburg. Let's see. I'm trying to look through a couple notes, and I think it's more about just reclaiming the locker room for Roseburg. Like, he publicly came out and praised Jerry Jeudy for backing Russell Wilson. And he's worked with the team's analytics guys. So this is a coach who seems to be in the player's corner. And I don't know what his background really is, other than a longtime assistant under Harbaugh as a special teams coordinator. But as the residual effects of special teams, you need to know everything. Like we saw John Fossil a couple of years ago take over as the interim head coach for the Rams after, what is his name? Got fired. It was like 7-9 every year. Why am I blanking on
Jeff Fisher.
Yeah, Jeff Fisher. Yeah. He replaced Jeff Fisher after he was special teams coordinator. So, you know that the special teams guys always have those creative plays and are looking at the players in different ways and new perspectives. And I think more so for the Broncos, it's about reclaiming the locker room. According to Ian Rappaport, the biggest reason why the firing of Nathaniel Hackett happened when it did was because of the fighting on the sideline. Like there was, reasons to be concerned about Hackett, of course, and people on Twitter have been clamoring. Jacob and I have seen that. But according to Rappaport, the reason why it happened so quickly is because of the lost locker room. So picking a guy who's trying to reclaim the locker room for the last couple of weeks, I think is important for the Broncos brass. Anything, Jay? I don't know. That's the best I can do on the spot.
Oh, I think I'm breaking up here somehow.
It's okay. Let's see. Okay, let's keep moving. Derek, choose my running back 2 and flex Jacobs, Algier, McKinnon, Devontae Adams, Christian Watson.
So we said Algier over Jacobs.
We did say Algier over Jacobs.
I think I got to stick with that. And
Algier and McKinnon then are 2 picks, or are you going to flex? Well, I mean, you'd want to flex Christian Watson, but I want to hear the full go. I don't want to hear, he might be limited. He might have a snap count, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't want to play Christian Watson then.
Yeah. I think I'd flex Jacobs.
Ooh.
Like, I like Algier over Jacobs, but not enough that I would, sit Jacobs. Like, I still like Jacobs. Well, but you know what I mean? Like, I would play Jacobs over a potentially banged up Christian Watson if we don't hear full go, no snap count or anything.
How about Jerick McKinnon? You starting Jacobs over Jerick McKinnon?
I think so. Because, even in a tough matchup with a bad quarterback, Jacobs is still getting all the work, and it's possible that Jarrett Stidham at quarterback means feed Josh Jacobs and just smash him into the 49ers front for 3.1 yards per carry and 30 touches. Who knows? So I think I'd lean Jacobs and Algier there.
Okay. I would go Algier and McKinnon. I am afraid of what Stidham is going to do for this Vegas Raiders offense. Derek is saying start the studs, full PPR. Nervous about San Francisco. I am very nervous about that matchup as well. Not just Stidham, but also that the 49ers are really, really tough. Secret, you're playing Adams. it's Devontae Adams. Go Jacobs, then Algier. Fair. Appreciate it. Joe says, thanks, guys. Found the channel. Really enjoying it. Yeah, Joe, thanks. Appreciate you tuning in. Thanks to everyone who's been tuning in. This has been a lot of fun going at it. If you like the content and found it helpful, make sure you're hitting that red subscribe button on the channel, and also following Jake on Twitter at 16 Fabian Jacob. He's been so generous with his time. About 90 minutes of live stream content plus the pre-show meeting. Yeah, this is wild. And he hasn't had to take a 5-hour energy yet. This is wild. So thanks, Joe, for tuning in. And thanks, everyone, too. This community has continued to grow, and really appreciate all of the support y'all have shown, not just me, but also each other, right? Answering, I've seen in the chats even, and Jacob can attest to it as well. He's seen it in the chat that y'all are answering each other's questions, trying to help each other, give each other insights. And even on some of the videos, y'all have said, well, this is the perspective I'm taking on this player, and these are the factors I'm factoring in. And it's been really helpful to, continue to improve myself as a fantasy analyst, getting extra perspectives. I'm a big believer that iron sharpens iron, especially in this industry. So if you believe you have something to bring to the table, we're here to listen as well. So that's part of growing as a community. And Joe, thanks for giving us some time tonight. Let's see. Close between McKinnon and Algier. I agree with you. It's very, very close. Here's a quarterback question. We answered a lot of quarterback questions at the beginning of it, but we didn't get to talk about Jared Goff or Kirk Cousins, and then London or Mike Evans. I'm going with Goff over Cousins in this matchup, even though both of them are going to be very high over unders.
Yeah, I would lean Goff, though it's tempting to mitigate the effects of playing against Justin Jefferson by playing Cousins. I do think Goff is the better play, and I also think Evans over London.
I think Evans over London as well. As bad as Mike Evans has been, we've talked about on the podcast, this is a possibility for a good matchup, but also, London needs to, he's gotten 9 and 11 targets each of the last 2 weeks and still hasn't been like a top 15 wide receiver. So it's been tough. Momo, Nasser, Devontae Adams, Judy, or Williams?
Adams or Judy really puts me to the test, but I think I still just hold my nose and play Adams.
I think we're rolling the marbles. We're going to play with Judy. We're going to play with Judy this week. I get to start your studs, but I posed the question earlier: is Adams a stud as of late? And we've had to plug our nose for a lot of weeks here, Jake. All right, we're almost done. We're almost to the end here. Jake has been crushing it with the questions. It's Johnny Mack, full PPR. Thanks a lot. Lost in order: Pitts, Taylor, Debo, and Jalen. Oh, he lost those. He lost Kyle Pitts. He lost Jonathan Taylor. He lost Debo Samuel. He lost Jalen Hurts. But he's still in the top 3 for playing for money. Congrats. It's Johnny Mack. That's great. We've got defense question: Cardinals, Steelers, Dolphins. And man, oh man, we've had a lot of defense questions. So Cardinals.
That one's Steelers for me.
Cardinals are 25th for me. Steelers, I think I put at 12th. And the Dolphins are all the way down to 20th. So I agree with you. Steelers there for sure. Watson or Wilson? I think you're firing up Garrett Wilson, even though, Jake is probably going to try to find ways to bench Garrett Wilson.
So is this Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson, or Christian Watson and Garrett Wilson?
Ooh, that's fair.
I would play Russell Wilson, and I would play Garrett Wilson.
So the Wilson, whoever it is, Wilson, Kyle. That's the type of quality. Ooh. Zach's not going to play. That's the type of quality content you're going to get here on the Best Ball Fantasy Football live streaming podcast. Make sure you subscribe there, Kyle. All right. Chris Patrick, Ramondre Stevenson, or Miles Sanders? Ooh, this is one of those tougher back end running back 1 questions, right? We haven't had a lot of them. And Stevenson is the consensus running back 6 on the week. Miles Sanders is down to the running back 14. So the consensus has it pretty significantly in favor of Ramondre Stevenson. I feel like I don't want to move too much further off of that. Miami struggles against opposing running backs. Philadelphia, gets New Orleans, and New Orleans always plays opposing teams tough, even if they do give up fantasy points. So I think you're still rolling with Ramondre.
Yeah, I agree. I'd play Ramondre there.
All right, Trevor Lawrence or Mike White. I feel like that was one of the first questions, wasn't it? Or no, that was in the pre-show meeting. That was a pre-show meeting question.
That feels like forever ago at this point. I think I'd go Lawrence.
Jake is he's had a couple kids, he's put them through college, he's a grandpa at this point, and by the time we circle back here. So who'd you go with, Trevor Lawrence?
Yeah, I think pre-show I might have settled on Mike White, but No, I remember now. It's for me. It's if you need a higher floor, you're playing Lawrence, and if you need the higher ceiling, Mike White. Just because the Texans are so easy to run on, and I see this being a big Travis Etienne week. Lawrence isn't going to have to do a whole lot. Although they have, the Texans have played the Chiefs well, they played Dallas well, and they beat the Titans last week. So I think I'd lean Lawrence in a vacuum unless you really need a ceiling. Like if you're facing Dalton Schultz or Brett Maher this week, then you might need some ceiling.
I tend to agree with you. Tony C, would you take a chance and start Conklin, Hunter Henry, or Fant over Mark Andrews? And for those who have been playing Andrews, he's massively disappointing. He's been tight end 19 or worse each of the last 3 weeks. I've moved Andrews down from tight end 5 to tight end 13 from the consensus. And but is that low enough to get to Conklin, Hunter Henry? But Jonnu Smith is officially ruled out, so it's only going to be Hunter Henry at tight end or Noah Fant. That's the question. Has Andrews fallen off the face of the map enough that you're starting the likes of Conklin?
That's too risky for me. I know Andrews has been disappointing. I know it feels like you just keep taking the same gut punch every week, seeing him in the lineup with single digits.
It's just a masochist, type of. How did we even make it in the championship round if you had Andrews?
Yeah, well, I tell you, I have a whole bunch of first place regular season teams now playing for third that have Andrews, but no, I would go Andrews there.
Yeah, I have Andrews at 13 right now and Conklin at 14. So it's still Andrews, even though it's close. It shouldn't be close, but that's it. That's how the mighty have fallen right now. Henry, Fant, or Jawan Johnson, Charles Hill from YouTube. Thanks for tuning in, Charles. Appreciate you asking. For me, it's I haven't updated the Hunter Henry one yet. Yeah, Jonnu Smith has the concussion. Henry's has a knee issue. He left that game with a knee issue. I'm not trusting that. So probably Jawan Johnson then.
Really? I'd go Fant, I think. The reasoning being solely that I think Fant is the better talent in a better passing offense. And Jawan Johnson, while he's been productive, it has come predominantly on touchdowns. So I'm not sure how reliable that's going to be going forward.
Yeah, the touchdowns have been nice, though.
Oh, they're definitely nice. We do like touchdowns in fantasy football.
This is facts. Yeah, Jawan Johnson has struggled lately. He's had, he was the tight end 59 against San Francisco. He didn't play week 13. Week 16, 1 for 9 on 2 targets. That was the bad weather game. He did have a 4 for 67 and 2 touchdowns against Atlanta, which is perhaps why we're even more disappointed in Mark Andrews. Jawan Johnson can go 4 for 67 and 2 touchdowns, and Mark Andrews can go 3 for 45. Like, come on. I feel like it's a coin flip. Noah Fant, Jawan Johnson. So if we're going that way, let's go Noah Fant. Let's go consensus Noah Fant. W234 have Hurts sitting out for my offensive player spot. He's officially doubtful, right? I don't think he's expected to play. How do you think Teddy Bridgewater will perform? Debating Bridgewater versus Dotson versus Pacheco in the offensive player spot. I think you got to play your quarterback, right? I think you got to go quarterback. Even with spike weeks from Dotson or Pacheco, those are only like 60th percentile outcomes for Teddy Bridgewater. And I know it's in New England against the Patriots team who is like the third best pass DVOA, defense, but I think you're still going Teddy Bridgewater when you got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle on the field with you.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, last couple questions, unless we get some Hail Mary ones. Jake has been crushing it. Over 100 minutes. We're approaching the 100th minute. We should do a 100-minute dance or something. I won't. I won't make him do that. But we've got Lee Z, Akers, Algier, Dotson. Which two would you pick? I think it's Algier and Akers, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And then Lee Z from YouTube, Goddard versus Freiermuth.
That would be Goddard for me.
Yeah, I'm going with Goddard as well. Goddard is a top 5 tight end for me this week. All right. We answered all the questions. Jake crushed it this week. Give him a follow on Twitter at 16FabianJacob. Make sure you're hitting that subscribe button on the YouTube channel if you like the content and find it helpful for you. And Jake, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much. And this is also an opportunity for you to give the people the plugs. So we got you at the Twitter spot, but what else do you do? Tell us about your work.
Yeah, absolutely. So like we said, follow me on Twitter at 16FabianJacob. Follow our podcast at Losing Sucks. It's at Losing Sucks because losing sucks. Don't do it. We also have YouTube, same name, Losing Sucks. Please like and subscribe there. And that's all I got.
All right. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having Jake on. We've been, this is his first time on the live stream. So Jake, I think you survived, did a great job. And the people, just kept coming. So, they must be happy with your answers. And this has been a lot of fun. So, it's been great having you on, and great to finally connect person to person, not just behind the Twitter sphere. So, all right. Any last words for the people?
Nope. Just it's been great. Doing this, it helps me think through my own lineups, helps me help other people. I just hope that everyone goes out there, has a great week in fantasy, has gets to talk a bunch of crap in their league group chats. And thanks so much for having me on.
Absolutely. All right. Until next time, everyone, good luck in the fantasy football streets.
I embrace all this risk, I'm insane. Talking about that best bill, I'm the best rest till into the next world. Guess I got next still. Best bill, I'm the best rest till into the next world. Guess I got next still.